Good evening and good evening and welcome to the Nation Podcast. I'm your host Tammy. Thanks so much for joining me tonight. For those of you who are listening to the live podcast, thanks so much for listening. For those who are listening to the downloaded podcast, thanks so much for listening as well. I appreciate everybody. Please do me a favor and tell someone, of course, about the podcast. I'm on, obviously, on Spreaker.com, YouTube Live right now, and also on iHeartRadio. So please, again, tell somebody about the podcast. I would greatly, greatly appreciate that. Also, I have another podcast that comes on Saturday nights. It's called For the Health of It, Health Matters, in the same time slot, 8 o'clock Central, 6 o'clock Pacific, 9 o'clock Eastern on Podbean.com. Once again, that's For the Health of It, Health Matters. It comes on the same time slot, 8 o'clock Central, 9 o'clock Eastern, 6 o'clock Pacific on Podbean.com. And I appreciate if you would join me on Saturday night. Coming to you live on YouTube, on America's channel. The A is for action, the M is for motivation, the E is for energy, the R is for responsibility, the I is for initiative, the C is for core care, and the A is for all, as in liberty and justice for all. And so, again, I hope that everybody, appreciates that. When I thought about changing the name of my channel, I said, what can I do, to enhance it, and I thought, well, I'm gonna rename my channel, and I did. So I hope somebody, is going to get something, out of that. All right, let's see. We're gonna go to the latest news headlines. I wanted to say, let's see, I wanted to say, they had some headline yesterday that said that Joe Biden was upset about the press, yelling at him. And I thought to myself, that's pretty darn funny, because Joe Biden hardly does anything but yell at the press. And so he's upset because the press is yelling at him. Really? I thought that was pretty funny. I said, now that speech, whatever that was, not State of the Union, of course, but, that presidential speech he gave in this, hellish looking bat cave, I mean, I don't even know, still don't know what that was, like I said, looking like, some hellish bat cave and some cheap, theatrical production from Hollywood. And I said, I don't even know what the heck that was. I don't think anybody else did either. And he spent however much time it was yelling at people. And I just laughed. I thought, really? You're upset about being yelled at when you yell at people all the time? I said, the Democrats don't like it when someone does to them what they do to other people. And so I was thinking about it today, and I said, well, it's pretty funny. I said, now Hillary Clinton not too long ago talked about Donald Trump ranting and raving, in one of his speeches that he, in one of his campaign rallies. I laughed to myself and said, oh, okay, so Donald Trump's the only one that rants and raves, huh? I said, okay, well, again, Joe Biden hollers and screams at people all the time. But that's okay. She didn't bring that up. So I thought about it. I said, okay, well, let's take a walk down memory lane, shall we? And let's talk about the Democrats that have ranted and raved. Let's see, Chuck Schumer. I want to tell you, Kavanaugh, I want to tell you, Gorsuch, if you, do what you're planning on doing, you're going to reap the whirlwind. you won't know what hit you. And I said, oh, okay. I said, Hillary Clinton never brought up Chuck Schumer's ranting and raving. Okay, let's move on to the next person. How about Maxine Waters? Every time she opens her mouth, she's ranting and raving. Get in their faces. You let them know they're not welcome anywhere anymore. Follow them to the gas station, she said. So pretty much telling people to stalk people, and that's exactly what they did. They stalked people. They couldn't go into restaurants. They couldn't, but Hillary Clinton failed to mention Maxine Waters ranting and raving, which she does all the time. Okay, so let's move on. Remember Howard Dean? His speech that pretty much ended his presidency. Yeah! Him hollering and screaming like, I said, what the heck was that? And you haven't heard from Howard Dean since. But of course, that wasn't ranting and raving. And I know if I remember that speech, I know a lot of Democrats do too. And finally, and there's so many more examples, let's talk about, Al Gore when he was running for president. Republicans have the wrong agenda. They don't even want to count you in the census. But that wasn't ranting and raving, according to Hillary Clinton. Only Republicans rant and rave, not Democrats. And as I said, I know those aren't the only examples. But as I said, according to Hillary Clinton, Donald Trump is the only one that rants and raves. I said, so Joe Biden had a lot of nerve, talking about, the press yelling at him when, again, all he does is yell at people. You gotta be kidding me, right? It's pretty funny. If it really is. So we're just going to read some of these headlines here. Let's see. Republicans, some of them are doing pretty good in some of the races, so we can only hope, that they'll be able to retake the Senate and, and retake the House. I'm hoping that that's going to happen. All right, so how bad is it for Democrats? Read Hispanics. How about Telemundo, NBC admitting a point swing that makes them feel faint? There are a lot, of course, Latinas that are, running for office this year, more than I've ever heard of before. And, they're doing pretty good, Republicans. Mayra Flores, has been one of the, that part of the Texas hadn't been Republican for a long time, decades, and Mayra Flores won. And so that's a good sign. And there are other, Latinas running, for office. And I think that's good. Very, very good. We need, them, to represent their community, and it's great. Biden blows people away with glowing praise of Governor DeSantis' handle of hurricane, and then starts rambling about climate change. Well, he couldn't help it. He had to go there, I suppose. Because he listens to his liberal base, and they're the ones that are running his they're the ones that are running his running the White House. Moving on. All right. Let's see. New York Times mocked so-called election deniers, regrets it the very next day. I'm pretty sure every liberal in town jumped them. Because again, you have the long list of Democrats denying Trump's election. But according, again, Joe Biden, they didn't deny the election. When you have a long list of them denying the election, his election. But of course, Trump, who had every right as an American citizen to say that, Biden's election wasn't legitimate winds up with January 6th, when he had every right, as I said, to criticize, just as much right as they did. But again, they're not election deniers. Only Trump and Republicans are, when they are on video denying the election, one after the other. But of course, as I said, the liberals will never call out their own people for anything, so there's nothing surprising there. But yeah, they denied the election, and Trump, as I said, who had every right, it was his opinion. He had every right to say it. He had every right to freedom of speech to say what he said. He had the right to do that. He had a right to tell people to protest. He had that right. Freedom of assembly, that's in the Constitution. And the only people that were breaking the law were people that were probably set up in the crowd to do what they did, to blame Trump. I believe it to my heart. Those people that broke in, a lot of them were plants, I believe. There was a lot, going on. I believe, as I said, it was a setup. I really do. When Muriel Bowser, the mayor of D.C., and Nancy Pelosi would not agree to National Guard troops, I said that was a setup, because they wanted trouble so that they could blame Trump. Don't fool yourself. The people that got arrested on January 6th are all Republicans. I don't think any Democrat has gotten arrested yet. So don't tell me it's not a setup. It wasn't a setup. As I said, Donald Trump was still the president at that time. And again, he still had, a right to protest, and he still had a right to use his presidential power. He didn't do anything wrong. No crimes were committed by Donald Trump. The people that broke into the Capitol, again, why weren't there more Democrats being arrested? There were a lot of people, as I said, who caused just as much destruction, but because they were Democrats, they weren't arrested at all. I'm just making that observation. I'd like to know any Democrat that was arrested. I'm just, like I said, I'm just making that observation. But yeah, like I said, he had a right. And of course, as I said, the New York Times, daring to tell the truth, of course, and the liberals get mad and probably try to shut them down simply because they told the truth. Let's see. Large garbage bag used to transfer stacks of Aberdeen ballots from Detroit. I mean, the thing is, there was so much cheating going on. They know it, but unfortunately, it fell on deaf ears. Even the Supreme Court wouldn't take up the case, unfortunately. But there was so much cheating going on. I just really don't believe, and you can think whatever you want to think, I just don't believe that Joe Biden won the election. I don't. Because there's too much evidence of a lot of cheating going on, a lot of fraud going on. And like I said, I just don't believe he won the election. And as I said, the message fell on deaf ears. And Mike Lindell, the My Pillow guy, and others were saying that, they were exercising their First Amendment rights. Why are they being sued? Why are they sued? Were they being canceled because they expressed their own opinion? You didn't agree with it. You didn't agree with it. Again, it just goes to show you what happens, as I said, when conservatives express their opinion versus Democrats who express their opinion. You know what I'm saying? I mean, you can see the difference, obviously, and it's an unfair difference. As I said, they've tried to cancel Mike Lindell ever since then, simply for stating his own opinion, which he has the constitutional right to do as an American citizen. Again, no laws were broken. He didn't break any laws by stating his own opinion. But of course, as I said, conservatives are not allowed to. Only Democrats are allowed to express their own opinion. Only Democrats are allowed to be election deniers. Republicans are not allowed to. And so again, when we talk about a two-tier justice system and a double standard, it's the truth. You can say whatever you want to say, but it's right in front of your face. And I'll be back in a second with the next podcast. Shoot. Map away. Just a moment, everybody. Sorry. All right. Good evening, everyone, again, and welcome to the second segment of the Nation podcast. Again, welcome everyone to the second segment of the Nation podcast. Thanks again for joining me tonight. As you can see, I'm on YouTube Live, so any movements I make, you can see, which is quite all right. Thanks again for joining me tonight. If you're listening to the live podcast, please tell somebody about it and say, hey, I'm listening to a live podcast. Maybe you might be interested in listening to it. If you listen to the downloaded podcast, tell somebody about it. Say, hey, I'm listening to a downloaded podcast. Maybe you might be interested in listening to it. Still looking for people to join me on YouTube Live. I'm going to keep on humbly asking. Please, as I said, join me. Tell people about, YouTube Live. I'm also on, of course, Spreaker.com, YouTube Live, and I'm also on iHeartRadio. So you can listen on any of those platforms. I also have another podcast. It's called For the Health of It, Health Matters. It comes on in the same time slot, 8 o'clock Central, 6 o'clock Pacific, 9 o'clock Eastern, except it comes on Saturday nights on Podbean.com. Once again, that's the Nation Podcast, Saturday nights in the same time slot on Podbean.com. So please join me on Saturday night. Also coming to you from America's Channel on YouTube, Action, Motivation, Energy, Responsibility, Initiative, Core, Care, and All. And so, like I said, that is my my platform on YouTube, America's Channel. So as I was saying, about Democrats, being election deniers, but Republicans aren't allowed to. Talk about Donald Trump not being an election denier, just stating his own opinion. Mike Lindell and other conservatives. Somebody suing Mike Lindell, and he actually tried to fight against a lawsuit, or he filed a lawsuit of his own, but he was denied, which again is unfair, simply because he was stating his own opinion. If you don't like it, then don't listen. You don't have to listen. You don't have to listen if you don't want to. That's their opinion, and they had a right to it. All right. Let's move on. As I was again reading the story about large garbage bag used to transfer stacks of absentee ballots from Detroit. So what else is new? And Secretary of State saying it was the most secure in history. I don't think so. Again, there was a lot of fraud going on. A lot. And it's been proven. Of course, nothing, of course, no surprise there that the left completely, ignored, ignored that. And obviously, Governor Hochul claims New York's safest big city in America. And I'd like to know what plan she's living in, because I haven't seen that. I don't live in New York, but I just know that there's been a surge of crime. I mean, how can you say that? How can she say that when you have a lady that was almost beaten half to death and she's probably going to be blind? Ask her how safe New York is. What about the woman who was an FDNY officer that was ambushed and stabbed to death? She was just about to retire. Did nothing wrong. She say she was sitting in her car sat wherever she was sitting eating lunch. Stabbed to death by somebody. And I mean, you're seeing the news headlines all the time. The bodega man who had to kill somebody because they came in the store and tried to rob him. This bodega and tried to rob him. I mean, how is Kathy Hochul, the governor of New York, saying that New York is safe? It's not true. It's not true. All you're hearing about is crime, crime, crime. People can't ride the subways. They can't walk the streets. How is she saying something like that unless she's completely delusional? Again, ask people in New York if they feel safe. I don't think so. She's living in a big governor's mansion with security 24 hours a day, in which she's the governor of the state. So she has a right, obviously, to security. But what about the other people who don't have 24-hour guards? They're vulnerable. They're sitting ducks. Again, you see the crime. Every time you pretty much turn on the news, you see more crime going on, not there and in other big cities too. So, I mean, it's crazy. For leftist media, Trump has to be guilty no matter what. You think? You think? You think? They blame him for everything, even when it's not his fault, of course. He's not even in office and he still gets blamed. So, again, what else is new or surprising about that? Because they're not going to blame Joe Biden. They're not going to blame him for anything. Not going to blame themselves for anything. Not going to happen. They're completely out to lunch, completely oblivious to everything on purpose. And again, what can you say about that? I said they're not going to blame him for anything. It's always going to be somebody else's fault. Again, Donald Trump isn't even in office, and he's gotten blamed for everything that's happened. But again, he's not in office anymore. Rasmussen poll shows voters overwhelmingly oppose sexually explicit material in public schools, but you wouldn't know it from the media coverage. I mean, talking about the woke agenda of school, the public indoctrination centers, I call them. Not schools anymore. When I was in school, when I was young, it was called a school. It's not anymore. It's an indoctrination center now, where it's just anything, whatever. Teachers can teach anything, and parents don't know about it. Parents try to oppose it. They're called domestic terrorists, according to the FBI. They go after the parents for simply wanting to know what their children are being taught in school. It's crazy. Again, like I said, just anything you can think of now, kids are being taught. The agenda is just being pushed on these young kids. They don't know anything about sex at 5 years old. What are you doing talking about sex at 5? They don't even know anything about it. But yet this is what's being pushed on these little kids, homosexuality being pushed on these kids, transgenderism and all the rest of this nonsense. And these little kids, they don't know anything about this, but they're trying to indoctrinate them. They're warping their minds towards all of this. And it doesn't make any sense. Let kids be kids. When they're old enough, they can make up their own mind about what they want to do. But little kids, 5, 6 years old, doesn't make sense. And people are parents are understandably upset, about what's going on. I mean, if I was a parent, I've said this to myself before, I don't have any children, but I promise you, I'd work 3 jobs to make sure my kids never went to public school. Forget about it. No, my kids would not go to public school. No way. No way. It's just not even close to what it used to be. Like I said, it's just, to me, it's like a sewer. It's like a sewer now. Like I said, the teachers, the ones that are there, are being fired for speaking out. The other ones are completely beholden to the woke leftist mob. And like I said, it's just anything. Anything Whatever they want to teach, they just teach it. Again, parents aren't informed. Parents are made to feel like something's wrong with them if they question anything. These are their children, not the government's children, but the government is acting like it's their children. These are their children. They're raising them. They're feeding them. They're housing them. They're clothing them. I said before, if the child damages something, the parents have to pay for that. But yet you're taking the rights of parents out of their hands. But yet if a child damages something, guess who's paying for it? The parents have to pay for it. So it's okay for you to have financial responsibility for your kids, but we'll take everything else. I'm saying get them out of public school, get them out. We've already had 2 or 3 generations of kids that have been indoctrinated. Get your kids out of public school, because it's at this point, it's just not even worth it. It's not worth it. It's just the biggest cesspool and sewer you could think of at this point. But again, they're teaching anything and everything, and they don't even care. All right. Feds purposely made kids miserable during the COVID pandemic to coerce them into getting vaxxed. Again, what else is surprising? The parents got scared and went ahead and got them vaxxed because everything was closed. Couldn't go to the park, couldn't go to the amusement park, couldn't go to the restaurant, couldn't do nothing, couldn't go to school. So what were parents supposed to do when their kids were shut out of everything because they didn't get a vaccination? What else were parents supposed to do? They gave in, they caved in. And these people knew it and they didn't care. What do you have to hide? LA and NYC refused to hand over crime staff to FBI for national figures as murder rises by 4.3% and rape by 3.9%. Well, again, what do they have to hide? What do you think? Of course, they don't want anyone to know their crime stats. They're sitting there lying. Remember, I just read a second ago the governor of New York saying, we have the safest city. Okay. Again, they won't put the crime stats out there. So guess what? People have to do it for them because they're not going to be honest enough to say it's because of them and their policies that, again, people are scared to live in their own home, scared to stand in their yard, scared to walk down the street, scared to get in their cars because people are running up to cars and carjacking people. You've seen that on the news. Again, just walking up and hitting people upside the head, just beating them up like that lady in New York that got beat up. A video of a lady and her daughter being carjacked. People breaking into stores, just breaking in, looting. Nothing being done, not being arrested. Security or whoever standing by watching everything. People just walking in stores and shoplifting. But crime is not a problem, I guess, according to some liberals. Because again, I know what I see on the news. The Wawa in Philly, just people coming in, just a mob robbing the place. And I said, what happens if that store shuts down? Those people don't have jobs anymore. There's a whole full effect that happens. That store is gone in that neighborhood. Would people need that store? I went to Virginia Beach and went to a Wawa. I had never heard of it. The big store. If that store shuts down, then what? That's one of the only stores some people have in their neighborhood, period. Because I know that because the closest store I went to was about 10 blocks or more from where I was staying. And so these are the same people, again, that condone these policies. The same people that live in these neighborhoods condone these policies. They don't seem to have a problem with all of this crime going on. And when these stores don't come back, these people lose jobs, and then they complain and they say there's no stores in our neighborhood. It's a food desert. Why would a store want to invest? What for? I can't blame a lot of those stores for not wanting to invest. They're blaming the stores for not wanting to invest. Would you, if you owned a store, want to invest in a neighborhood where there's nothing but crime going on? shoplifting and carrying on? Would you? Of course you wouldn't. But of course, they're never going to blame themselves for their actions that contributed to a lot of the stores leaving these neighborhoods. Some of them tried. But there was so much crime, they left. Again, no owner of any business is going to continue to put money in a store and just lose money. It's not going to happen. But again, according to these people that live in these neighborhoods, it's the store owner's fault that they won't invest anymore. Okay. Again, who's going to keep on putting their money in these stores? What owner do you know of that's going to keep on doing that? It's not going to happen. And so again, what do we do about the crime problem? Putting people in office who are going to fight crime and who are going to fire these DAs that aren't doing their job. That's what we have to do. No more cashless bail, no more letting people out when they've committed crimes, in jail, out of jail, a rap sheet as long as my arm. And these people are being let out of jail again and again and again to commit more crimes. Doesn't make sense. But that's exactly what's going on. And as I said, these DAs in a lot of these liberal states are not doing their jobs. They're not. And the people obviously are suffering because of it. And I'll be back in a second with the last podcast. All right. All right. We're back with the third podcast of the night, the third segment of the podcast tonight. Thanks for joining me tonight. For those of you who are listening live, thanks for joining me tonight. For those of you who are listening to the downloaded podcast, thank you so much for joining me tonight. Please tell somebody about the podcast. I greatly appreciate it. Say, hey, I'm listening to a live podcast. I'm listening to a downloaded podcast. Would you like to join me? And I would really very much appreciate that. I also have another podcast. It's called For the Health of It, Health Matters. It comes on Saturday nights in this same time slot, 8 o'clock Central, 9 o'clock Eastern, 6 o'clock Pacific. On podbean.com on Saturday nights. Once again, that's For the Health of It, Health Matters on Saturday night on podbean.com in this same time slot. Also, I'm coming to you, of course, on YouTube Live, Spreaker, and also iHeartRadio. So you can listen on any of those platforms. This is America's channel. The A stands for action. The M stands for motivation. The E stands for energy. The R stands for responsibility. The I stands for initiative. The C stands for core and care, and the A stands for all. And so, again, coming to you from America's channel tonight on YouTube. All right. So as I was saying, the soft on crime DAs have only themselves to blame. That's why some of them are facing recall. Simply because of people are tired. They're done. There's so many people now that are speaking out. Even Democrats are speaking out now saying, we've got to do something about this. This is crazy. We can't live this way. Innocent people just being ambushed on the street for no reason. You're scared. You never know when someone's just going to come up and just beat you half to death or just pummel you, punch you for no reason. It's crazy. So of course they don't want to want to tell you what their crime stats are. Obviously, obviously they don't want to tell you the truth. Amid violent crime, UC Chicago to host convicted murderer who touts redemption. Okay, again, redemption. Okay. And I'm not saying that a person who's committed a crime like that can't be changed. I'm not saying that. But I mean, it's just to the point where it's just too much. It's just way, way, way too much. It's too much. And again, the soft on crime, policies. I'll say it one more time. I'm not saying the person can't change, but a lot of these people are being let out of jail before time. Some of them really shouldn't be let out. Just being real about it. They shouldn't be let out of jail. They shouldn't be, not because of because of some of the crimes that they've committed. Okay, I'll just say that. Some of those people should not be let out of jail. I believe in redemption too, but I also believe a person should serve their time. Serve your time. You did the crime, serve your time. A lot of these people, again, are being let out of jail, and they shouldn't be. A lot of them are going back out there to commit more crimes. Again, because of liberals, letting them out of jail and things like that, and just, again, no bail, the whole nine. And, we can't continue to let this happen. All right. And Chicago ought to know, because they've had so much crime. Ridiculous every week. Again, you're hearing about a shooting in Chicago. Again, people are just scared to death, and I can't blame them. And I was born in Chicago. I have family there, but I won't go visit. No, ma'am, I won't. My mother was born and raised there. If she was alive today, she'd be so heartbroken to see the city that she was born in, just see it a mess the way it is. She'd be heartbroken. Because it wasn't that way when she was growing up. We used to go visit all the time, and it wasn't that way. Yes, there was crime there, but the way it is now, it's just ridiculous. And I would not go. I just wouldn't go. I love my family and I want to see them, but I'm telling you, I wouldn't go. I just would not go. Look at this mayor fool of Chicago. Speaking of Chicago, I mean, I'm sorry. I don't mean any harm, but it's like, okay, this is what you get when you vote for these people. I mean, this is what you get. Here it is right here. She's about as qualified to be mayor as a tree is. The tree is probably more qualified than she is. A dog, scratching his fleas is more qualified to be mayor of Chicago than she is. But yet, here we go. They put her in office, and she's done a terrible job. She's a terrible mayor. And again, it's just ridiculous. Again, whatever happened to qualified people being in office? Somebody answer that question. Arizona voter blasts Mark Kelly on border crisis. It doesn't seem to be a priority. No, it certainly doesn't. It certainly doesn't. Because these same people ran on the lie that they were going to be trying to secure the border, and of course they haven't done it. And I bet you he's one of them. And people are foolish enough to vote again. We re-elect Mark Kelly. They deserve the government they get. I'll say it again, because the guy hadn't done anything for Arizona. He votes for Joe Biden 100% of the time, and he hadn't done anything for the state to help him. But again, they just ran on lies, just like you're running on lies now. Trying to go to the middle, knowing that they're to the far left. But they'll do that in an election year conversion to get votes. And they know that these are not the policies that they have been pushing and implementing. They just lie with a straight face all the time, just bald-faced lies. And so you can see what's happening. Once again, the governor of New York pretty much saying that illegal saying with a straight face that now we need federal help. These are the same people that wanted these people here. They wanted them here. They were with Joe Biden lock, stock, and barrel about immigration. They're all welcome. Just like Martha's Vineyard. All are welcome until they came to Martha's Vineyard. All are welcome until they came to New York and Chicago and DC. Not so welcoming after they're in your neighborhood, as I've said in past podcasts. It's okay for Governor DeSantis and Governor Abbott and other governors to be overrun with these people. It's okay as long as they stay in your state. Stay in your state and vote for us. Stay in there. Those stay in conservative states and vote Democrat. It's okay as long as they were against somewhere else. Now all of a sudden, the same people who did nothing to secure the border, have done nothing to secure the border, have voted against, vetoed any legislation to close the border. Now these people in their neighborhood, they don't like it so much. Okay? As I said, their hypocrisy knows no bounds. They should look in the mirror. Again, and now, as I said, they are running to the government when they didn't care before. They're hypocrites and they don't care. As I said, with a straight face, they just, what goes for me doesn't go for thee, and what goes for thee doesn't go for me. The same policies that I want for myself, I don't want for you. I want something different from myself, even though I've told you that you should have what I want you to have. I want to say the different policy for my state than I want for yours. Even though I want the benefit of it, but I don't want the problems and the issues and then the burden of it. That's exactly what's going on with illegal immigration. They don't want the problems or the burden of it. But it's okay for Governor Abbott and Governor DeSantis to have the burden of it. You see what I'm saying? Let me see. Of course, you no doubt have heard about Herschel Walker and his, something that happened over 10 years ago. And I'm saying, okay, it happened 10 years ago. Wow. Herschel Walker committed no crime. He says it didn't happen. Okay, I believe him. But my point is this. Herschel Walker committed no crime. This was over 10 years ago. He was maybe a different person than he is now. No, people can't change. Of course not. Republicans can't change. The Democrats will go back 50 years. But ignoring the man that's running against him, Raphael Warnock, who his ex-wife said he tried to run over her, hadn't taken care of their children. How come the liberal media is not reporting that? Of course they don't want to report that. Of course not. Raphael Warnock again has his own problems. But they're not reporting that. They're only reporting, again, Herschel Walker, again, who committed no crime. The people who believe in abortion should be cheering him on, saying, good. A woman wanted abortion. He paid for one. Wow. Again, I disagree with abortion. I'm a conservative. I'm a Christian. But you know what? Again, people have to live with their own decisions. And again, this was over 10 years ago. Herschel Walker may have been a different person than he is now. He maybe, again, it was what it was at the time. He did nothing wrong. He committed no crime. He's a different person. He's a Christian. And now he doesn't believe abortion's right. People can change. But, I'm so sorry. I forgot. Liberals are the only ones that can change. They're making a big, big, big deal over this when there's nothing to make a big deal over. He didn't do anything wrong. He committed no crime by paying for a woman's abortion. Okay, like I said, this was over 10 years ago. They're the only ones that can evolve and change and make mistakes, I suppose, huh? Just ridiculous. And of course, they have nothing else to run on because Herschel Walker, is doing a good job, in trying to, beat Raphael Warnock. When is Raphael Warnock going to come on and talk about all of his troubles that are going on with him? When is he going to talk about his ex-wife? When is he going to talk about not taking care of his children? When is he going to talk about some of the things that have come up about him? When is he going to talk about that? Herschel Walker's been on TV. Where has he been? He's not coming on TV to talk about nothing. And then guess what? The liberal media, once again, will give him a pass. But they'll do a whole segment on Herschel Walker day and night. Special news report, special news segment. You know, they'll go on and on and on and on and on about Herschel Walker. Okay? But again, nothing about the man he's running against, who's hiding. And the liberal media is letting him. All right. One more before we go off. Let's see. All right. Trump has been winning, of course, with some, cases about Mar-a-Lago, which is good for him. He says he's going to the Supreme Court, which is good. Good. I'm glad about that, because that's what needs to happen. What happened wasn't right. His civil right, his constitutional rights were violated, and good for him. Last one, new poll shows increasing majority of likely voters believe voter fraud influenced 2020 election. Again, you think? I mean, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to figure it out. And anybody in denial is only, in denial simply because, they want to be. They know, but again, they don't care because winning was all that was important to them. They didn't care that Joe Biden wasn't competent to be president. They didn't care that Kamala Harris wasn't competent to be president. They didn't care. It was about winning for them. And look at the result. All they wanted was to stick a Democrat in office, and they'd give a darn about the American people or how it was going to affect them. So I wonder how that's working out for everybody now. The same people that voted for Joe Biden are not happy with him. Let's just put it like that. Thanks again for joining me tonight. Please join me next Wednesday night at the same time, Saturday night on podbean.com for the Health of the Matter. Good night.